Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we're going to take a look at Venus's upcoming square to Uranus, which will be happening next week. But this is happening now for the second time because Venus is retrograde in the sign of Leo. So their square already happened earlier in the summer. We're going to take a look back at that, and then we're going to take a look at the upcoming square and why it's a big deal, and of course, what you can watch for. I think that this is one of the more remarkable features of the Venus retrograde cycle this summer is it's the fact that we have multiple squares in direct, retrograde, and direct motion. So 3 times between Venus and Jupiter, Venus and Uranus, as Jupiter and Uranus are co-present in Venus's sign of Taurus. So it makes for a very expansive and kind of liberating Uranian and Jupiterian Venus retrograde, which is, that's a unique signature to be so present throughout the entirety of a Venus retrograde cycle. So we're going to keep looking at that. We've looked at that already a few times. We're going to keep looking at that today. Anyway, before we get into it, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments in the comments section. And if you'd like a transcript of today's talk, you can find it on the website, nightlightastrology.com. I always appreciate it when you guys hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're new, helps the channel to grow. Sharing your comments goes a long way as well to help the channel grow. So please do drop your insights and reflections into the comment section. Really appreciate hearing from you guys. When you go over to the website, be sure to check out all of my readings and courses. We have courses coming up in the fall again, and we will be having a 1-week flash sale on my courses in August to be announced shortly. So we just kind of landing on the dates for that. It takes a minute to get the website geared up for the sale and everything like that. So we'll let you know when that's happening. That'll be happening during the month of August. Any questions about anything you find on the website in the meantime, email us info@nightlightastrology.com. Okay, let's take a look at the real-time clock. I'm going to put it up on the screen right now. And I want to point out to you that here's Venus at 25 degrees of Leo, just walking into that 3-degree range of Uranus in the square. And let's walk this forward a little bit. So Saturday, August 5th, they come a little bit closer and get that closeness coming in even closer on Sunday. And then they're coming into within about a degree on Monday, August 7th. And then we see them really kind of hugging each other together between Tuesday, August 8th and Wednesday, August 9th. So the perfection of that square comes at that time. This is also coming very close to the moment that Venus will move through the heart of the sun, which is sort of its rebirthing moment in the Venus retrograde cycle, which is August 12th. So this rebirthing moment for Venus is pretty powerful because Venus hits the square to Uranus right around the 9th, and then a couple of days later, it hits the cazimi with the sun. So you have this kind of rebirthing, awakening, transformation of Venus that's happening very rapidly between the 9th and the 12th. Now that's next week. But at the end of this week, I think it's worth preparing ourselves for, and we will be probably looking at this again next week, just because it is the biggest transit of the week. And the Venus cazimi will be important to take a look at as well. So you could be experiencing this over the weekend and coming into next week, all the way through the end of next week, really. But anyway, today what I want to talk about are what the themes that I want everyone to be watching for, that I think we could be watching for, considering not only a normal Venus-Uranus dynamic, which I cover multiple times every year as it happens, and most people should be familiar with Venus-Uranus combinations if you follow astrology. If you don't, this hopefully will be really helpful for you too. But in particular, I want to look at what it might mean that Venus is revisiting the square to Uranus. Oh, and that reminds me, we were going to look at that and we didn't. Let's put the real-time clock back up for just a second and do that because that's important. So if we go backward in time to Venus's previous square through direct motion, that square through direct motion came right about the end of June, beginning of July. As you can see, this is about July 1st, so it'd be the 1st into the 2nd of July that Venus made the square to Uranus through direct motion. So we've already had this once, and that's why the themes that we're looking at today are considering the Venus-Uranus dynamic sort of like archetypally and generally speaking, but also what does it mean that Venus is now retrograde and hitting that square? So in particular, I would say the big thing to watch for, whether we're talking about themes that we are revisiting from earlier this summer, well, I guess it'd be winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, but the beginning of July, we could be revisiting those themes now. Something that began around the beginning of July or that was being highlighted around the beginning of July, we might be going back to or re-looking at, or even some kind of process that was in that was unfolding for us in the early part of July could be taking a next important step. Things. It's almost like you can imagine like when a woman is in the process of labor. Oh, here comes another big contraction like that. It's like when planets go back and forth through an aspect pattern. There's a square, then it's retrograde, and it squares again. And there could be transits to your natal chart that work like this as well. You'll notice that every time that the same transit comes around, the same kind of deepening of you'll deepen into the same themes and patterns that you've been visiting already. It'll be like another layer of the onions being peeled back, or it's like a spiral. You're going up, maybe you're doing some positive work, but we're coming around. We're going to visit that again hopefully from a slightly more mature or integrated place, but here it is again. So the big thing that I would watch for here with Venus squaring Uranus again next week through retrograde is, what are we revisiting that has its roots in the summer, right? Or that has its roots in the past, something a lot older, maybe something that we've been working on over the past couple of years, or even maybe over the course of our lives. So just the first thing that I would say is that Venus-Uranus, because Venus is retrograde, might be highlighting things that we have been working on lately, or that have some kind of really important history in our lives, especially around the themes of Venus. So love, sex, relationships, friendships, beauty, aesthetic, taste, values, what we find attractive and what we don't. So there it is. Now, number 2 would be breakthroughs where there has been stagnation or stuckness. And this is kind of hitting on the Uranian side of it. Maybe we're revisiting things from the past, but whether we are or we aren't, whether there is some big history behind what we're visiting, the Uranian promise of the square would be that whatever we're visiting in some Venusian area of our life, there's likely to be breakthroughs. That's a Uranian theme. Let's break out of the familiar, or where there has been stagnation or stuckness. Now, stagnation I consider to be something like, I'm moving in the right direction, I'm trying to get free of something, I'm trying to evolve, I'm trying to grow, I'm trying to heal, but it's been slow and kind of sticky. And Venus hits Uranus, and all of a sudden, in some Venusian area of your life, relationships, love, any friendships, community, whatever Venusian topics are most active for you right now, it's been slow going, kind of going in the right direction, but it's been maddeningly slow. Then boom, there's a sudden acceleration of growth and development, and you can describe it as a breakthrough. Now the other way of putting this would be that things could be stuck. They're not moving. You're stuck. You can't change your mind. You can't find the motivation. You don't know what to do. Things have come to a standstill. So it's not that they're moving, but too slowly. It's that they're totally stuck, in which case the Uranus transit can also sort of break things up and get things moving, and usually very quickly, and because of some lightning strike event that occurs that has the effect of breaking up the stagnation or stuckness. So breakthroughs where there has been stagnation or stuckness, especially in Venusian areas, relationships, love, friendships, groups or communities of people, sex, your body, sensuality, art, aesthetic, desire, taste, value, suddenly, boom, there's movement. So watch for that. Number 3, experimentation and breaking of old habits. Now, this is similar, but one of the things that you'll find is that throughout the entirety of a Venus retrograde, that there is the desire to try on something new around love, sex, and relationships in general, or with respect to art, beauty, design. You could be redesigning a bedroom, or you could, but there's a need with Venus retrogrades, whether they're hitting Uranus or not, to be retrogrades often signal that planets are doing something that could be considered off the beaten trail, a little renegade or maverick-like behavior from planets when they're retrograde. So add in Uranus that amplifies that theme of rebellion, experimentation, breaking of old habits, and the experimentation or exploration of radically new ideas, like an inventor coming up with a new way of doing something that everyone does the same all the time. Like you can imagine, you can imagine the first time that it's like, well, let's come up with a telephone, or it's like, well, we've been sending letters for so long. Why do we need something new, something different? There's always going to be some resistant or sort of recalcitrant part of us that's like, I don't want to change, And I feel like Venus Uranus can grant us the enthusiasm, the inspiration, the excitement to say, let's experiment, let's explore, let's try on something new. And that, because Venus retrogrades tend to do that anyway, their maverick and renegade-like behavior of retrogrades, this can really be a pretty powerful moment of saying, let's do something totally different and break the old habit. Well, there's a routine or a habit. It's not necessarily bad. It doesn't have to be regressive or dark or shadowy to try something new. It could be like, well, this works just fine, but like, let's try this crazy thing. And that doesn't mean that the old thing is bad. So experimentation of breaking of old habits is a little different than saying breakthrough where there's been stagnation or stuckness, which sort of implies that you need to get beyond something that's holding you back, which can be a very Uranian theme. To get out of stuckness and to experience liberation, like, oh, the light's pouring through, that breaks through the clouds, and suddenly there's like, I'm free from the oppression or the shadow or the bondage or the constriction. And Venus getting free, that can express itself, in terms of like, finally someone's telling their partner what they need, maybe in love or sex or, emotionally or something. This is what I need. And you finally speak it, and okay. But then there's also this feeling, it's like, well, there's nothing really wrong, but what if we tried this? Right. And it's more like fun and experimental, as opposed to trying to rid ourselves of something that's binding or constraining. So these kinds of things would come up and be amplified, again, because Venus is retrograde, already tends to signify the need to explore or try on different things around Venusian stuff. Okay, number 4, Venusian stuff. That's your phrase of the day. That's your astrological vocabulary of the day. Unexpected twists and turns, especially around Venusian things. This is kind of standard Venus-Uranus stuff. Gosh, I'm hung on that word today. Unexpected twists and turns with Venus and Uranus would be that something is happening with a friendship or a relationship that pops up. It could be very exciting. It could be an opportunity of some kind. It could be a tower-like moment for a relationship that's unexpected and a plot twist that proves very difficult. But you can almost always anticipate that there will be a flash of lightning that comes when any planet gets engaged with Uranus. Especially, Venus is moving very slowly through the square. It's retrograde. It's already hit Uranus once. So the feeling of something that's been building up to this moment where, boom, there's this sudden plot twist or a really unexpected turn of events that puts you on a path you weren't anticipating. And again, it would usually have something to do with your friendships, social groups or communities, harmonization and flow with other people, love, intimacy, sexuality, your style, your aesthetics, your values, your taste, that suddenly you're experiencing a renaissance because there's an event or a quick domino series of events that's very unexpected, that has the effect of turning and reorienting you in some way, relationally or in a Venusian way. Okay. You can tell that I'm coming fresh off vacation. And by the way, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but we had our I just got back this week, and I had a series of, while I was in Colorado on family vacation, I basically was dealing with altitude sickness the whole time I was there. And so this week, I ended up asking Alex to host horoscopes for August because I've just been trying to get my head on straight coming off from what was supposed to be a vacation, ended up being sort of this harrowing period of altitude sickness. So I feel like I'll really have my head on again next week. But anyway, I do appreciate Alex coming in and doing our horoscopes this week for me so that I could get my whole life sort of back on the tracks and running smoothly again. All right. Well, that, by the way, I think I mentioned it. That was the Mars Saturn opposition that came up while I got the altitude sickness. That was super fun. Okay, so the last theme for Venus Uranus that I would watch for in the next week would be sudden awakenings. Now, this is one of my favorite Venus Uranus themes. I would say that this is what I have Uranus squaring my natal Venus in Leo in my birth chart right now. And one of the things that happened for me on the level of sudden awakening was this returning to I would say, the best habits and forms of connection that my wife and I shared before our kids were born. And it was like, the kids were born and our nighttime routines changed and everything changed. And we sort of got away from doing our spiritual practice in the morning together, especially that one. There's some other things too. Just in terms of the way that we made sure to stay connected. It looks very different after the kids came into the picture, So Uranus hits Venus in my chart. And all of a sudden I was like, we need to get back to those practices. The kids are at an age now where we can. And my wife was like, same thing. She was like, yeah, totally. And so we did. And it just felt like this like rekindling of our pre-kid connection. I don't know if you're married and you have kids, you probably know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that was a very sudden awakening for me that was really, really helpful and very powerful. The sudden awakening of Uranus and Venus can be, let's just say that you're an artist. Probably many of you out there have some medium, paint or an instrument, or you sing or something like that. When Venus hits Uranus, let's say that you've just gotten away from writing for a while, or let's say you've gotten away from picking up your instrument or something, and Venus hits Uranus and something happens that just lights that fire in you again. And you go, oh my God, I feel the creative call rising back up in me, and it's been dead or dormant for a while. Now that can happen in love. That can happen getting back to our morning routines as a couple. It's a very Venus Uranus sudden awakening of love and connection. Or it can be, oh my God, I'm going to play my guitar again. I remember one of the things that happened for me, and I think I might have told you guys this story already. I feel like I'm in dream time when I take like a week or two off from recording. Everything gets like, I'm like, is this the real world? Anyway, so when I was in my early 20s, I had an electric guitar, and I'd play acoustic guitar and electric guitar just for fun. And but I sold it for like gas money and stuff. That was the situation. And I hadn't had an electric guitar since. So during this Venus Uranus transit, Uranus transiting my natal Venus in Leo, I was like, all right, it's time to go reconnect to my electric guitar. So with of course my wife's permission, I got an electric guitar, and it has been exactly that. It's been like, oh my God, there's this creative part of me that flows into everything else I do when I spend a little bit more time playing a guitar. And not only that, but specifically an electric guitar, because I hadn't connected to that part of my guitar playing for like 20 plus years. So I was like, wow, there's this whole other part of my musical creative side that's getting reawakened because I'm playing an electric guitar for the first time in a really long time. I know it's a stupid, like everyday, it's just such a mundane story. It's not very profound, but it's amazing how simple things can happen that sort of help you to access creative parts of yourself that have been dormant for a long time. And all of a sudden you go, wow, that's back. And when that part of me is back and has room to express and be creative, it sort of brings light into a lot of other rooms in the house psychically. So watch for these sudden moments of illumination from within creatively. Something can get awakened. It could be sexually, it could be creatively, it could be romantically, or it could be in friendships or groups of people. It's usually social or artistic or erotic or sensual or kind of creative, that something gets turned on and awakened, and that can be part of a deeper change that's happening right now because Venus is retrograde and hitting Uranus for the second time. And we're going to see one more square from Venus and Uranus later. Actually, let's look at that. I'll put the real-time clock up before we end today so that we can just take a look at the final square. So if we're going to bring Venus all the way through her retrograde here, and then the square. And then, of course, Venus is going to hit the square to Jupiter for a long time too, which is really interesting. And then Venus goes back through the square to Uranus, and that square sort of, it perfects late September. So it's like, you can see it right here. This is September 29th. You can see Venus and Uranus are square to one another. Let me just highlight it in case, not everyone is familiar with looking at astrological software. So here they are right here. That's late September. We have a third pass. It's like, this is just such an interesting Venus retrograde story with Uranus back and forth. The fact that Jupiter is co-present, that Venus will hit another 2 squares to Jupiter, is also fascinating and something we'll be looking at in the days ahead. All right. Well, I thank you all for hanging with me during this interesting, this has been a very interesting vacation. Started off with this amazingly cool trip out west to see the Grateful Dead for my birthday, followed by a week of altitude sickness in Colorado, followed by a week of, I guess, integration right now. It was just the weirdest thing. I felt like I got shot out of a cannon to the top of a mountain, and then, and then shortly after got altitude sickness on the mountain and had to come back down. So anyway, I love all of you guys. It's so nice to hang out with you, and you guys have been so nice while I've been on vacation, and so kind and warm to some of the guest hosts I've had. I really appreciate you all, and we will see you again after the weekend. All right, take it easy, everyone.